Well, good evening and welcome to the segment of the Ring of Honor here for Louisville football. And it is my extreme pleasure and delight tonight to talk to our honoree here for the Ring of Honor. And I tell you what, you look at the Leopard tradition and the many, many great teams and the standards that were set. It all kind of goes back to those 1960s teams. And we are here tonight with one of the stalwarts of that team, to celebrate him and his legacy here, not only in Louisville football, but as a man. And so we're here tonight with Mark Stier. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So, well, it's just wonderful to get to sit down here and talk to you. I mean, I've heard a lot about you, growing up in Louisville, hearing the names, whether it's Bob Gallaggio, Tom Klebeck, Mark Stier. You hear a lot, but obviously you went around to see you play.
Sure.
And so this is truly an honor to get to talk to you. And so tell me about, it's been a long journey, 76 years on this earth. How was it growing up in Louisville? And tell me, like, maybe some of the guys, well, first of all, your family owned Stier Funeral Home. So what was that like growing up in a funeral home?
That was kind of a crazy experience. It had its good points and it had its bad points. One of the bad points is you never, ever had any of your friends ever want to stay over, at night with you. That's kind of typical old boys kind of inviting, hey, let's have popcorn in front of the TV. No, never happened. Never happened. So, in order to have friends, I got to play outside, which is okay with me. And luckily, we had Tom Edwards, or Edwards family, was right across the driveway. Had almost converted their property in. They had a basketball court lit. They had a football field lit on the side of their house, and you could play there almost at will 4 or 5 seasons in a row. And the neighborhood was such that there was always kids. The Klebecks, Flattings, the Dwyers, the Edwardses, Lodjos. There was always a nucleus of people to play basketball or wiffle ball or kick the can or whatever the game was. It was great. It was a wonderful childhood. We got no complaints.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you're growing up, that's when the Little Leopard program first started, correct?
Right.
So now what teams were you on? You were a pioneer, right? You were the first year.
First class. Wow. First class. I was on the Colts. As you know, they divided Louisville into 4 parts. The Colts, the Bears, the Browns, and I don't remember the last one. So if you lived in that jurisdiction, yes, what team you happened to be on. Bob and I were on the same team on Colts.
I'm guessing that season went okay.
Yes, yeah. Carl Cozy was our head coach. But that first year, it was, we had belts with tag things coming down here. And it was, if you were the running back and I grabbed your belt and pulled this thing off, plastic thing, that's when the play stopped. So it wasn't as much hitting, let's say. It was a tackle. Shortly after that, it went to tackle. We did away with those belts and all that.
So that was your really first taste of organized football.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at that time, Happy Littlex is the head coach at Louisville, just taking over the program. A couple kind of so-so years, kind of middle of the pack, 4 and 6, 5 and 5. And then we get to your sophomore year. And those 3 years, from 1962 to 1964, those 3 years go 28-1-1, with some of the most stalwart defenses that Louisville has ever seen, including only giving up 24 points your senior year, which is a staggering number. So over those 3 years, you pitched 16 shutouts, and I think only 2 teams scored over double digits on you. How was the defense that good? Obviously, the offense was pretty darn good too, but what's the mentality for a defense like that?
Well, we had a lot of kids, and we had a lot of really good kids that were playing either both ways or just playing defense or offense. I shone on defense, not so much on offense. Gallaggio was one of those guys. He could both sides of the ball. He was exceptional. But there were kids that tended to play better on defense or play better on offense. They had great senior leadership. Senior leadership is always critical in any program. Younger kids tend to follow their leaders, and We had an excellent coaching staff. The Tri-County League, I kind of felt like Louisville somewhat outgrew it partway through, with the exception of a couple teams in that league and then a couple other teams that we were playing during the year. So the schedule wasn't maybe as hard as it could have been. We had a different schedule.
So your junior year, that you guys beat Latonia mid-season, and that was the start of a 38-game win streak for Louisville, which is still a record to this day. So the Tri-County, maybe not as strong as Louisville grew, but your main rivals, Canton South, Minerva, North Canton, any memorable games there or stories there that you can remember?
Well, I think the two games that really stood out. One of them was the Minerva game when the field in Minerva mysteriously got flooded, and there was probably that much water, on the game field at game time. Nobody seemed to know why or how or whatever, but I can remember jokingly saying, "You got to make sure you don't get stuck on the bottom of the pile. You're liable to drown." The other one was the North Canton, which was the big rivalry. I've got relation that live in North Canton, so that was kind of double deal for me. They had somebody had built this probably 20, 25-foot statue, paper mache statue with a wood frame underneath it. And it stood on their sidelines. I can remember Coach Lillick, like a good coach would, "Oh, boys, this game is over," and we beat them pretty handily. "This game is over, and you make sure stay away from that the statue. Don't you dare go over there. Don't get close to it." Well, that was like, telling a 4-year-old, don't touch the cookies that Mom just baked. It isn't going to happen, and so you could just kind of see as the game started to end that this gravitational over. First couple guys went over, tackled the thing, it came flapping down, and it got destroyed. Now, rest of the story. Coach Lillick's our head coach.
A gentleman.
And a gentleman. Rumor has it, I did not see it personally, rumor has it that on his fireplace mantle after the game, weeks after the game, mysteriously, that statue ended up on the mantle. So he gave it the old teacher DOO, "Boys, you shouldn't have done that, and shame on you," and yada, 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 but it was part of the game. It is a fun story.
Yes, and when that coach's room was closed after you guys left, it might have been a little bit different story for them. So, so obviously an incredible high school career, all county, all Ohio. But part of that is you missed a good chunk of your junior year with injury, and so which is a big recruiting year. And so coming out of that senior year, I believe at that time your choices were potentially Kent, perhaps Lillick just went, or Navy. So explain to us how you got to Ohio State.
Well, Bob and I went often on the same recruiting trips. So Bob and I went to Notre Dame together. Bob and I went to Ohio State together. Both of those schools were, recruiting Bob, and I was kind of coming along with him. But I got kind of recruited in that mix too. Coach Hayes is a very intelligent guy, was a good judge of character, a good judge of athleticism and those kind of things. He saw maybe something in me that some of the other coaches had seen. Was not heavily recruited, and people were aghast that I ended up at Ohio State. And it was a lot because of Woody. I can remember Woody coming to our house, Mom making apple pie, sitting around the table, and all he talked about for an hour was the academics at Ohio State. Academics. Son's going to be able to do this, to be that, he can do this. It had it all academically. And football-wise, we didn't talk much football. And he offered the scholarship. It is what it is, what it is. It was a big class, the class that I went in with. And it finally kind of boiled down. It was kind of between Navy and Ohio State. Okay, Dad's running the funeral home, Louisville. He can't get away. He and I sit down, and he says, Mark, I said, I'd love to come and be able to watch you play college. I've got to drive to Annapolis, all the way over to the East Coast. That's probably, an hour drive, something like that. I can be in Columbus, and I can leave home here at 9:30 and catch your game 10 or something and catch it. And that had a big impact. I love my dad. He came to all my high school games. He was always there. And to be able to give him that opportunity to help me play was huge.
That's pretty awesome. So you head to Ohio State. Now let me ask you this, because you got the scholarship late. You weren't heavily recruited at that time. Were there lingering doubts in your head, am I good enough?
Yes. I went to Ohio State with the proverbial chip on your shoulder. Kind of got over, I wasn't heavily recruited, and not very many schools wanted me, and you kind of get through all of that, and then you kind of went on the other side with, okay, I'll show you. Kind of went with that attitude. It wasn't a mean attitude, harmful attitude. It was just, I'll show you. Who's heard of Louisville? Louisville is not, on everybody's radar for big-time football. Occasionally we get a kid here or there or whatever, but it's not like a Maslin. It's just generating or that kind of thing. So I went truly with a chip on my shoulder. I was pleasantly surprised when I got there. My roommate was from Maslin, Ohio. My other roommate was from Warren Harding. Okay, and I thought, my goodness, these are huge schools, are always good. I'm going to be left in the cold, but I could compete. I could compete with them. I could do everything, and sometimes better. So the Louisville Foundation, the Little Leopards, plan with great coaching and a great program, 4 years in high school, had prepared me well for Ohio State.
So when did that click? You go from a good high school career, not overly recruited, top level, get that scholarship. When does that doubt of I'm not good enough, potentially not good enough, turn into a 3-year starting linebacker at Ohio State?
It certainly was a driving force. It was something always in the back of my mind. Okay, I'll show you, kind of an attitude. And again, it wasn't vindictive or anything else. It was just, for instance, okay, we always ran sprints. We always ran 40-yard sprints after practice. We would pretty much run till Woody got tired, and he'd say, that's it. And I made it my goal after, an hour and a half practice, whatever. I was going to win every sprint. Every sprint I ran in, I was going to win it, which probably 90% of the time I did. Okay, show you. I'll prove to you I was good enough. Prove to you that Louisville had produced a kid that was good enough to play at Ohio State. It's just some of the little things that you did. Extra this or extra that, and once the coaches saw that you were a leader, even young underclassmen leader, Stier, take them through this drill. Stier, take them through that. Lead them to do this. And he started to rely on me to do the bag drill or to do this or to do, and it just shows. Football's not rocket science. Some of it's just gutting it out and hard work and being tough.
So what was it like? You hear many a story about Woody Hayes, the intensity, the this and that. What was it like playing for Woody Hayes? I'm sure he was demanding, obviously, but how did he bring the best out of you?
Woody was a class guy. Woody was viewed himself as an educator. He attended the faculty meetings of other, teachers and so forth at Ohio State. He was constantly Hey, Mark, how'd you do on that midterm chemistry class? You do all right? And we had the professor sending the grades to him, which was almost unheard of. So he knew if you were just on his leg. He was a class guy. I don't know what other word I can use to describe him. He was intense. He wanted it done his way. He didn't want any shenanigans. He didn't like it when people were screwing around and missed time and were late. But don't be late. We had a joke on our watches. Okay, it's 20 after 6 right now. Okay, so Woody time had 10 minutes. So it'd be 6:30. So everybody, we'd set our watches to 6:30, knowing full well, if he said to be there at 20 after, you got this extra cushion. It was just part of him. He was a destroyer captain in World War II. He was as tough as nails. But I tell you what, he loved his kids. He was passionate about his kids. He would do anything to help you after you graduated to get a job or to do this or to go there or get you in grad school, ed school, or you name it.
So transitioning a little bit. So you go from your freshman to your sophomore year, starting linebacker. Now, interesting enough, incoming freshman, Nick Coon, who happens to be the brother of Pat Coon, the to-be wife a couple years later. What was that like playing with your brother-in-law?
Good. It was nice. Dick and I have always gotten along well. Dick, in his own right, is a tremendous athlete. Well, I'm linebacker, right? Linebackers cover the hook zones, that 10 to 12 yards off the line of scrimmage, looking for people cutting across, tight ends kind of thing. So here comes Dick. Dick is running a pass route. He's split out, and he's going to cut across right in front of me. The ball comes, Dick catches it. It's just, and I'm picking him up afterwards and saying, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, yada, yada, yada. And our defensive coordinator, a guy named Lou McCullough, is just, that's the way we're supposed to do it, run the same play. Same play, coach. Are you sure? Same play, yes. Okay, here comes Dick. Bam, same deal. We ran it 3 times in a row. But, Dick and I have joked and laughed about that a couple different times, and he said, I understand. You had to do it because of McCullough, or else you would have got in big trouble. It was fun. Dick's a good man.
Awesome. So let's set the stage then. So your sophomore and junior year, team-wise success, very mediocre at that time. 4-5 your sophomore year, 6-3 your junior year. Woody on the hot seat. It sets the stage for 1968. Tell me the mentality of that team as you went into a season with your coach kind of on the hot seat. It turns out to be one of the most magical in Ohio State history.
Right. The first couple games of that 68 season were not real difficult kind of games. The seniors had to really step up. We got a lot of lectures from coaches, and rightly so. People follow their leaders. You guys are seniors. You got to step up. You got to take control of this thing and go. Us, we called them the Super Sophomores, maybe one of the finest single-class recruiting years Ohio State has ever had. So we had loads of talent. We had played against these kids, young men, as freshmen. They were the freshman team that we scrimmaged against often. So we knew how good they were. We couldn't wait till they got to be sophomores. So that's where I fit in, especially from a defensive standpoint. I was kind of like the defensive quarterback, the linebacker, called the defensive sets, made the adjustments, all of that. I wasn't by far the best guy on defense, but I had a Jack Tatum 5 yards away. I had a Jim Stillwagon, who was an two-time All-American, 3 or 4 yards away. But we were loaded with talent. What I provided, what other seniors provided, was some of the leadership and it's okay. It's all right. I'll be able to stop him and just slow this train down a little bit. And let's focus on what we're doing. It's that leadership, intangible quality that helped carry the day.
So take us to that afternoon, 1968. I think it's week 3 or week 4. Again, an unproven Ohio State team, not ranked very high at that time. In comes number 1 ranked Purdue into Columbus, into the shoe. Tell us about that game.
Not a very nice day, rainy, yucky. Leroy Keys was their star running back. Mike Phipps was their quarterback. Didn't probably tell you this, but the first couple of weeks of the season,
I won't tell anybody.
There were all these extra plays that we played defense against during practice. And you look at the Southern Methodist playbook and Oregon's playbook, and you go, they don't run that. What plays are these? Little did we know that we were going to be practicing against Purdue and having Purdue plays, for 2 or 3 weeks prior to ever playing them, kind of disguised as Southern Methodist or ECU. So it was, or Oregon, I should say. It was. Coaches had a neat way of getting you fired up. I was not overwhelmed with how good Purdue was. They were, I thought, kind of mediocre.
Was that the moment at that time where the light, the switch flipped on? Like, man, we might be a special team. So you go through the rest of that season. You win a tough game in Champaign against Illinois. You win a tough game at Iowa. Sets the stage for against number 4 Michigan coming to town. That game didn't turn out so well for the Maize and Blue. 50-14, the infamous "I couldn't go for 3" game for Woody Hayes. So it sets the stage for a 1 versus 2 matchup. Ohio State heading to Southern California to play USC in the Rose Bowl. Gives me chills to just think about it. What was the thought process for those couple 3-4 weeks as you're getting ready for the Rose Bowl to take on future Heisman Trophy winner O.J. Simpson and a loaded defending national championship USC team?
Can I go back to the Ohio State Michigan
100%.
game? All right, we're playing Ohio.
This is your night. You can do whatever you want, Mark.
We're playing at home. This is Michigan. All we heard is Michigan. Beat them 50-14. You score right at the end. Now it's 48-14. And we're looking at each other like, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? Jim Roman from New Philly was our field goal kicker and extra point kicker. That's all well and good. John Molback from Massillon is my roommate, broke his leg in the Michigan game. He can't snap the ball. Jim Roman is the backup center. He can't snap the ball and then run around to the back and kick the extra point. We had intended to kick an extra point. It was never a discussion. Until we realized we're on the field, we realize, wait a minute, we either don't have a kicker or we don't have a snapper. One or the other is not there. We can't do this. Everybody thought we did it in spite. We'll show Michigan. Michigan blew it all up the next year. They went and they just wanted to pound it in. That wasn't the case at all. We didn't have the personnel. We didn't have the right people on the field. Long story short, we went for 2. We made it 50-14. Such is life.
And that's the story behind the story. That's fantastic.
You're hearing all the story behind the stories.
That's why we're here. That's the best stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. Game time. You're looking across from O.J. Simpson.
Right.
Team's down 10-0 mid-second quarter after an 80-yard touchdown run by O.J. Is there any lingering doubt that am I good enough?
No. Well, that left. At some point in time, after you've played enough and won enough games, and that kind of disappeared. OJ was exceptionally shifty, and then he put his speed on top of that. I was supposed to be playing him man to man. which I was, except that I was always about 5 yards behind him because I couldn't keep up with him. He was very shifty. He runs in. The play that you're talking about is play into the sidelines, breaks it, goes all the way down the other sidelines, and scores, I don't know, it's about a 70-yarder. But we finally kind of got it together. And we settled down, and we were able to corral him. He didn't have any other big runs that told us. Then our offense really picked it up. Give a lot of credit in the Rose Bowl game to our offense. When we were down, a lot of teams would have just folded it up. But our offense went out and scored, and then we scored again. And it was kind of back and forth second half. It was funny. It never happened in 4 years, except at the Rose Bowl. Game's over. We're in the locker room, changing clothes, celebrating all this and that. Get a knock on the door. OJ. He lets him in. OJ says, "I wanted to talk to your team," which is kind of unheard of. OJ comes in. Perfect gentleman. Just wanted to say, today you guys by far were the best team. Good luck, God bless, and all that. Where he goes, and that's just kind of the caliber of the guy. And then the way his life kind of turned out with some of the other stuff, it's too bad, because I think he decided.
Sway to his character back then, sure. So, leaving that locker room, how did it feel to be a national champion?
The other thing that nobody knew, this is like Thursday before the Rose Bowl. It's picture day. Woody somehow got talked into having the local press there, and they're taking pictures and all this and that. So we're in pants, t-shirts, no pads, helmets, no shoulder pads, no nothing. And we're just out. We're just kind of running through stuff. You do that, and the TV guys come over. No offense to TV guys. They come over to Lou McCullough, who was my position coach, coaching the linebackers, and we're just dropping into our hook zone. Who's throwing us kind of nice, easy passes? We catch them, bring them back, and somebody made a comment. Well, they're not really having to work very hard. Said, "Okay, guys, let's turn it up a notch. Yada yada yada. Let's go full blast. Now we don't have any shoulder pads on. We got just pants and shirts and a helmet. I'm the next guy up." And quote McCullough, "Next guy that dogs it and misses this ball is going to be in trouble. I'm the next guy." Dropped to my hook zone. He throws it, but he doesn't throw it easy like so you can catch it. He throws it long so you can stretch out. It's the ball, upstairs. Hand on this shoulder, it was this way. Hand on this shoulder and separate the shoulder. I can't even raise it. Barely, I could do it now, but at that point in time, I couldn't. Trainers come over, they look at it. Had team doctors on the field, they come over and look at it. Dr. Patton, Dr. Murphy said, "I'm sorry, but I don't think you're going to." I couldn't do that. I said, "What would happen if you just shot it up with Novocaine? What if I couldn't feel it? Muscle's still there to do this." "Oh yeah, but you're going to be in a lot of pain." "I don't care. It's once in a lifetime." So before the Rose Bowl game, I probably had 4 or 5 injections of Novocaine into the shoulder. The whole right side of my body was kind of numb. But I played. That night, after everybody had gone and all that, it all started to wear off, and that was a different story. Went back to Columbus days later, and at that point they re-looked at it and said, let's try therapy, get you in the weight room and all that. Let's hold off any surgery. So we're sure. Yeah, that's a true story. I was that close to not playing.
So an incredible year, incredible season, incredible career. Ends with all academic, all American honors, team captain. But one thing, as I researched you, one thing that stuck out to me was you were voted team MVP, which is just a sign of incredible hard work, leadership, toughness, those type of things. What did that mean to you when you found out you were voted team MVP for a national championship?
That's, it's kind of the best of the best. I did not expect it. I expected it probably to go to Rex or somebody like that, or a running back or somebody else. A lot of it was leadership. As I said, when you're playing with younger players, we played a ton of South. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for somebody to say, hey, go that way, do this, And again, I by far was not the best player on the field in any stretch. What I brought was, I understood the defenses. I called the defensive sets for 3 years, knew where everybody was supposed to go. And I was vocal enough to be the encourager to say, hey, stop. 3rd and 3, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's practice, let's go. I don't know. But I think they recognized that hey, here's a guy that maybe athletically wasn't top of the list, but overall from a leadership and what we needed at the time. 2 years later when these guys were all seniors, they didn't need it. They didn't need that so much because they all knew. Back then when they were sophomores.
An incredible career at Ohio State, graduate, that takes you into some teaching and coaching, eventually to Worthington Industries for 27 years, taking you from Columbus to Chicago, even working in Indiana at some point. Just tell us a little bit about that journey from graduation that eventually brought you to the ministry.
I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was always somewhat envious of people to go to college and they know, oh yeah, I want to be an accountant. I want to be a this or I want to be a that. And so everything's kind of steered that way. For the first couple of years, I'm just taking general stuff just to take classes that they would all count toward graduations. And I can remember sitting down with my dad and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, Dad, I don't know what I want to do. He said, well, why don't you be a teacher and a coach? He said, you know that part of it. I knew I didn't want to go into the funeral business. I said, okay. So I changed my major. I'm an education major and a coach, which is what I did after school, did grad work, and coached at Upper Arlington. And then I had several friends. John McConnell, who's the president, who's the founder of Worthington Industries, played for Duffer Doherty at Michigan State, an athlete, knew, difficult, an athlete, good student, and stuff was. He said, if you can do that kind of work, that's what I'm looking for. And for somebody with that athletic type mentality that's going to go out. I was in sales, so going out and knocking on doors and had sales territories. So we hired several athletes from different sports and different schools. I was fortunate enough. I got kind of an Ohio territory, which meant I didn't have to travel and stay overnight and all that kind of stuff. So it was a dream come true. Pat and I wanted to start a family. I was a teacher. She got pregnant, had to kind of stay home and all that. She's an RN, so she was doing better than I was. But suddenly it all kind of changed, and so that was a chance to be able to provide for your family.
3 years, 3 kids later, Matt, Brian, and Mickey, a career in business,
Yep.
brings you back to Columbus, and then eventually takes you into the ministry, where you've been a pastor of different sorts, from the executive pastor, you name it, at Westerville Christian Church.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that over these past, I think, about roughly 15 years.
Sure. I've always been a man of faith. Sometimes I didn't practice it very well, but it was partway through my life that I just finally had kind of that God moment and said, either this is going to be real and I'm going to follow it, or it's not going to be real and I'm going to dump it. I chose the first. Okay, if it's real, let's go. All in. I'm going to stand on the sidelines and just kind of baby. I'm all in. And that's kind of when it first started. I had already started some seminary work. Lived in Indiana. Whenever I could take a class, I would take a class. It was like a 50-hour you had to take, so it was a lot of hours. But then Columbus was closer, and I went to school in Cincinnati, drive down, go to work, drive down, take a class, drive home. It just kind of all clicked, and I have enjoyed being a pastor. It's a rewarding career. At some point in time, this is all going to end for all of us. All going to end. It's a little bit like coaching. My job is to help prepare people to be ready for the end of the game, for the end of your life, and for the end.
Well, I tell you what, just from our conversation today, to see God's fingerprints all over your life and how some things didn't make sense at that time, but here we sit here today, and that, which kind of leads me to my final question for you. Again, you've been from Louisville to Columbus to Chicago over these last 76 years. God has had his hand on you. My question to you, because now we're talking about the Ring of Honor, and this honor, which is incredibly and well-deserving. What did wearing the blue and white mean?
It was a very, very special time. Louisville has always been near and dear to my heart. My wife's went to Louisville High School too. That's where we met. It's just an extra kind of thing that pulls it together. I appreciate the people. I appreciate the opportunity that it gave me to be able to play at the next level, and where that kind of went, stepping stone, then on. So I want to do everything I can as a coach, as a former player, as a person to help Louisville continue to thrive and to grow, and to provide the same kind of opportunities to other kids. I'm not sure where I would have ended up or what I would have done had I not had athletics and academics in my life. Sure, I would have along the way resurfaced. It opened doors. And it can open doors for these kids today and kids that are watching this that are younger. Hey, the sky's the limit. Tell my grandkids, I got kids in Cincinnati and that are older, and I said, hey, and they're good athletes. They are pretty darn good athletes. This is the ticket. Look at it maybe that way, but play hard, play to win, play the game the right way.
I tell you what, Mark, your legacy is larger than life here. And I still remember you coming to my freshman year when I was in varsity. You came and spoke at our banquet. And the crux of that, now granted, mind you, I don't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday, but I still remember your speech 30-some years ago. And it had everything to do, I remember it was a card. It was a Ace of Hearts.
Yeah.
It was ACE. It was attitude, character, and enthusiasm. You do it all with heart. And so just to encourage you that speech really touched a next generation of Louisville Leopards that really kind of sparked a resurgence in Louisville football in the 90s and so on and so forth. So, but Mark Stier, welcome to the Ring of Honor. It's a pleasure sitting with you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, great job. Well.